Hi again. You're watching the Self-Love series with Dr. Hawks. So, right now we're going to talk a little bit about identifying the triggers. So, we've all been triggered from different things in our life over the years, and sometimes we don't understand why we reacted a certain way, right? You're like, man, I don't understand, but this really triggered me. All goes back to that conditioning in our limbic system for us to develop fears around certain situations, develop those protective mechanisms. And it's really important to protect yourself. So, if there's a situation where you have to act quick to protect yourself, that's okay. And that's an appropriate response. However, if it's just a conversation with somebody and you react emotionally, we have to understand why that statement or that behavior triggered us. So oftentimes people are brought into our lives to actually help teach us these lessons, and they will trigger you. 100%. They will trigger you because it's an opportunity for you to learn from that experience. So let's identify some of the triggers. Let's say, for example, you are having a normal conversation with somebody and they say something to you that someone in your past used to say to you all the time. And it was something that really made you feel not good about yourself. Well, first and foremost, that love comes from within. And we have to love ourselves with all of our great characteristics, all of our flaws, and work on those things. Let's say, for example, someone says to you, maybe you should get a bigger size. That shirt's a little tight on you. Maybe you should get a bigger size. To some people, that would be nothing. It would be like, oh, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Because this is going to shrink anyway a little bit when I wash it. So let me just, get ahead of this one. Wonderful if you have that response. However, others may take that as a personal insult. Why did we take that as a personal insult? What about the way we feel about ourselves made us take that as a personal insult? So maybe when you were younger and you were trying on clothes, maybe someone said something to you along the lines of, you don't look good in that. That's too small for you. And yes, those words hurt. And was that an appropriate way for them to talk to you? No. But we're all learning. We're all learning. And so just because somebody had said things to you that maybe were not the most appropriate way to speak to another human being does not mean that you have to internalize that and take it as an insult. So we all know the big trigger words for people, right? You want to call someone fat or ugly or, a bitch or, this or that. There's a ton of different words that people will associate with trigger words for themselves. Well, for example, when I was younger, you could put me down in any way you wanted to. But if you said something about my weight, that was a trigger for me. It was a trigger for me because I was told since I was young that you're fat, you need to lose weight. No one's ever going to respect you and what you have to say because you're overweight. You will never make it as XYZ because of this one thing that we don't like about you and we want to fix you and it honestly did come from a good place. They didn't want me to suffer. They wanted me to fix something that they found was wrong with me so that I would have a better life. And while that now looking back can be appreciated, even though I don't like the approach that was used, I can appreciate the underlying intent, regardless of how it may have damaged me at that time. So forgiveness, right? Forgive those whom have said things to you that are inappropriate because that's them. That is how they are dealing with their interpersonal skills. And if they don't understand how to respond or speak to somebody with kindness and compassion, then that's something that they have to learn how to do. Now, if we internalize what those people say to us and we allow it to let ourselves feel like now I have to protect myself because this is a personal attack. Is it? Is it a personal attack? Or is it that that person doesn't know how to talk to somebody? So taking that time for yourself to understand what some of those trigger words are for yourself and how you can reframe it is going to benefit you in the long run. So when someone says to you, oh, I think you should get a bigger size, and you first want to jump to be like, fuck you. Because there's a part of you that's going to do that, right? That's going to be like, you know what? I don't think I need your opinion. It's okay to have that initial reaction in your head as a protective mechanism. But do we need to act on that? Or do we need to understand why that triggered us, give ourselves that self-love, and do what's best for us? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It is a little tight. I'm going to go ahead and get a bigger size. Why? Because I love my body at any size. Because I know that what's more important is actually feeling good about myself. And if I'm wearing something that fits appropriately at any size, I am going to feel better about myself. So when you buy clothing and you're purchasing a pair of jeans and you get upset because the pair of jeans, the size that you always wore, a little snug, don't fit quite right anymore, go the size up and love yourself and know this is where you're at. And that's okay. It is okay to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at all times, because we should always be learning and continuing and growing in this lifetime to learn our lessons. So we don't have to take that as an insult. We don't have to internalize that. But oftentimes, because of the way that we're conditioned and the way that we learned how to protect ourselves and survive against these, attacks, the way that we learned how to handle those things are the way that we continue to respond to those things. Unless we put a stop to that, we process why we feel that way and turn it around. So one of the best things that I have learned over the years is learning how to respond with kindness and compassion, regardless of what someone says to you. So, for example, when someone gets real combative with you, you know already they were triggered. They were triggered by something that you said or by the situation at hand. But you don't need to protect yourself from their triggers. They have to protect themselves from their triggers. You have to make sure that the words that you communicate to others are from a place of kindness and compassion, that it's a response and not a reaction. So if we emotionally react, that's literally that conditioning in our limbic system coming to the forefront of the brain, telling us, do this real quick so you can survive. Well, if I fly off the handle every time someone says something to me about being bigger, then does that do me any good? Does that make me feel good about myself? No. So one of those triggers that will often come up is when people mention things about your physical appearance. So for example, I have a patient of mine she's beautiful, wonderful. And she has always, since she was younger, been self-conscious about her nose. Everyone that she, comes in contact with, they love her, they appreciate her for who she is. No one ever comments on her nose size, but it's something that when she looks in the mirror, she sees that and she will feel bad about herself. Well, it came out that she was made fun of a lot when she was younger for her nose size. And when really coming to terms with that aspect of self-love and knowing that we're all different, we are custom built, right? And so the nose size is unique. Now, this person actually is very beautiful inside and out. But if she feels bad about one thing, then she's not going to present her lovely self. So by giving ourselves that self-love and knowing I am beautiful, I am loved, I give love, I receive love, I feel joy. That's all those heart chakra mantras, right? So when we identify that someone saying something about our nose makes us feel bad and we react emotionally, that's when we have to take that step back to process, why did I feel that way about a very innocuous comment, right? Why did I immediately get triggered? Well, of course, it's because you were made fun of for years on end, but you haven't healed from that yet. So when you take the time to go within and appreciate every aspect of yourself and loving yourself for who you are and looking at all the beautiful things that you bring to the world, then those worries and fears about one little thing can fade away. When we separate a piece of ourselves from the whole, we're not appreciating our whole self. So if I pick myself apart and I say, yeah, I like my eyes, my lips, but my nose, no. You are separating that piece of yourself from yourself, but you as a whole is perfect. Appreciate each and every aspect of yourself and know that this is a part of you. And if we can learn to overcome those triggers and still respond to other people, not from the limbic system part of the brain, not from the fear, but respond because we're no longer fearing that, because we have taken that time to love ourselves and love every aspect of ourselves and know that someone else that wants to put you down, if they're doing it maliciously, they've got bigger problems anyway. So you don't even need to get yourself involved in their drama. But if they're doing it innocently and it's just a random comment that gets brought up and you take it personally, then that's that self-damage. So you are allowing what others say to separate a piece of yourself from the whole. You are then picking yourself apart and allowing those triggers to continue. So do yourself a favor when you look in the mirror, no matter what you've told yourself your whole life, if there is any part of you that you're not appreciating, take the time to appreciate it. Because when we work together with our internal selves to create a sense of wholeness and love for every aspect of ourselves, then we can come into each and every situation from a much more balanced state. And we can understand that instead of allowing that emotional reaction and allowing that trigger to spiral us, we can step back, take a moment, respond with kindness and compassion. And if you have nothing to say to that person, it is totally okay to turn around and walk away and not internalize that. And sometimes that's the best thing, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist. You can't even fight with them. Don't even try. Just know that's how they are, and accept them for who they are, and move on from that. We'll have a whole nother chapter on that one much later in the series. But right now it's just about identifying those triggers. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about some of the things that you feel like you've been conditioned to respond to emotionally. Everyone's a little different. So for me, like I said, I was very much conditioned to respond to situations around food and situations around my body image. So, luckily now to this day, I mean, of course, we are all working on something. We're a masterpiece and a work in progress, right? So, it's okay if there's pieces of us that we don't find perfect, as long as we're including that as a part of ourselves and knowing that we're working towards a higher level of vibration, a higher essence of energy. Once we are able to raise our vibration to understand why that triggered us, what within our conditioning allowed us to fear that and to take that personally, and then to respond still, not only with kindness and compassion to others, but to yourself. So maybe you're not the type that would even respond at all, but then you would go sulk or feel bad about yourself or put yourself down. That's not doing you any good. So I want you to take that trigger as an option to heal and to process why we feel the way we feel about certain comments made to us. Let's say, for example, you are at a party and you were always in youth not allowed to make your own plate because someone else made your plate for you to make sure you weren't overeating. Well, in adulthood, if someone else makes your plate, but you haven't healed that from childhood trauma, you're going to react to that. You're going to be triggered. I had an instance in my early 20s where a wonderful friend of mine, we were on vacation together, and she was cooking that night and she made a plate for me and brought it out to me outside. I was out on the back deck. Sweet gesture. Sweet gesture. I burst into tears. It doesn't mean that my friend thought I was fat. She wasn't trying to say anything about my eating habits. She was literally trying to do me a favor because I was outside hanging out with everyone else. She had just got done making dinner. She was like, "Oh, I'll make Jen a plate and bring it out to her." Little did I know that was a trigger moment for me. And that was one of the moments that really helped me to start processing my past traumas because I was surrounded by a support network at that point, and everyone that was there was a very close, loving friend of mine, and they wanted to help me. They were like, "What is going on, Jen? This isn't like you," right? So when we identify that, oh my gosh, my friend making me a plate just brought back all the memories of people telling me I was fat and making my plate for me because they didn't want me to overeat and they restricted my food intake. Now, if you want to know how to go about that, if you have a child that's, suffering, or you yourself is suffering with any aspect of overeating, binge eating, things like that, come see me personally. There's a lot of ways that we can address that. But when you look at it from a standpoint of healthy nutrition, and you look at it as a standpoint from, I am providing nutrition for my body. And if I am hungry, I should eat. And you should not restrict yourself from food. You should try to make healthier choices in those foods. So if it's your first helping at dinner and someone else makes your plate, that's not necessarily saying you can't go back to get more vegetables or you can't go back to get something else if you're actually still hungry. But then we have to remind ourselves, make sure to take your time eating, make sure to allow yourself at least 20 minutes before going back to get seconds. And if you are still hungry, great, go make that second plate a healthy choice. Get an extra serving of vegetables. Get an extra small half serving of protein, something like that. And know that it's more about the good that you put into your body than beating yourself up over the bad. If you're eating your vegetables, you're drinking your water, you're getting occasional fruits, you're eating good fats and good protein, then every once in a while, if you have something else that you don't think necessarily is the healthiest, but it puts a smile on your face and you're able to incorporate it healthily in a balanced way, great. It's about self-love. Don't beat yourself up. A lot of people spend time tearing themselves down. Well, when we allow triggers to then get internalized and we tear ourselves down from those triggers, then we just end up feeling worse. So, of course, I do this personalized, customized for a lot of people based on your situation. But this chapter of the series is all about identifying the triggers. So, I want you to take that opportunity for yourself when the next time someone says something to you or you're in a situation that's very triggering. I want you to take a step back to process why that triggered you. What conditioning, what fear have you built up that allowed you to internalize and be triggered by that? It's going to take more than just that moment to actually process it, but it's helpful to take a moment to process real quickly prior to responding. And then do your best to respond with kindness and compassion instead of emotionally reacting. So identifying the triggers is a big one. It takes a lot of work on your own to do that, but I'm here for you if you need my help. And stay tuned. There's a lot more coming up on this self-love series.